residency and a senior fellowship at the Harvard University Davis Center for Russian and Eurasian. Specializes in the music of the Middle East and Russia in relation to gender, politics, and diaspora. And now let's hear from Ina Naroditskaya.
Today I'm going to talk about the opera by Catherine the Great, my favorite topic recently, and I'm currently working on a translation, hopefully first ever English translation of her opera with interpretive chapter accompanying this. So this is about satirical opera, Woebegone, okay, or Woebegone champion. 11th September 1788, ordered to find a tale about Fufliga champion, so that to add to l'histoire du temps and make an opera, writes Kropavitsky. Fufliga, Fuflo, belongs to today's urban jargon and means something wretched. Vladimir Dal's 19th century dictionary defines Fufliga as a pimple, pustule, a petty and undersized person. What is the prototype of Fufliga and what l'histoire du temps impelled Catherine to create this opera? 4 days earlier, on September 7, Kropavitsky writes that King Gustav of Sweden had rushed to Stockholm directly to the opera Gustav he himself created. The operatic productions in two capitals took place months after the war erupted between Catherine II and Gustav III. The two Russian-Sweden warfares framed the 18th century. 20-year Great Northern War, 1700 to 1721, ended up with Peter the Great crushing Charles XII, the Lion of the North, dismantling the hegemony of the Swedish Empire, chiseling out the landlocked Russia, a long-desired window to the Baltic Sea and Europe, and founding his illustrious Italian capital. The Second Russian-Swedish War, shorter, 1788 to 90, had been complicated by familiar intricacies. Catherine the Great and Gustav III were cousins. Both owed their crowns to Russian Elizaveta. When childless and unmarried Elizaveta ascended the Russian throne, she snatched her nephew, Peter Ulrich from Sweden, replacing him with Adolf Frederick, a brother of her long-deceased fiancé. Sentimental Elizabeth also betrothed Peter Ulrich to a niece of her fiancé, Princess Sophie August Frederick, named to Catherine. Wedding cousins to cousins and installing them as the heads of the state intended to secure an unbreakable dynastic alliances binding Russia, Sweden, and Prussia. It didn't work. Gustav III, obsessed with the loss of Swedish territories, he was a son of Adolf Frederick. Gustav III, obsessed with the loss of Swedish territories that left him with a constitutional monarchy versus absolute monarchy in Russia, dreamt to regain the lands and prestige Sweden had lost to Russia. Personal relations between Catherine and Gustav, marked by periods of intense correspondence, long silences, and two face-to-face meetings, swayed from proclamation of cousinly love, ma chère sœur, ma chère frère, to hostile manifestos published in multiple languages, meddling in each other's internal affairs, theatrical rivalry, literary contest, caricatures, pamphlets, and actual war. The two cousins shared a profound affinity with theater and theatricality, and paid particular attention to opera. Gustav not only created, but appeared in major roles in the theater. Both lacked poetic gifts. Kropavitsky created rhymes for Catherine's operas. A Swedish bard, Carl Gustav Leopold, made couplets for Gustav's comedies. So how does it relate to the opera? Plotline of Woebegone. Woebegone was Catherine's fourth opera in the genre she actually invented by casting a comic opera in a 5-act form of opera seria with large cast and regal characters. Even though the Empress introduced all four as comic operas, they represent different types. Fivey was a moral tale, Novgorod Bogatyr Boyeslavich was the epic, or Belina's opera, the Achrideich or Ivan Tsarevich was the opera Magical, and this one was really only one really comic opera, satirical opera, Woebegone or Woebegone. Catherine crafted Woebegone first as a tale, and then the 5-act opera about a meager, cartoonish prince. She replaced the name Fufliga. I'm wondering, does anybody know the word fuflo? It's really fuflo. I mean, when you say even today in Russia that this doesn't worth nothing, says this is fuflo, garbage. Okay, so she crafted Woebegone she replaced the name Fufliga with Gory Champion, drawn from anagram of Gustav's name, and alluded in both her tale and libretto to real event. The first act of the opera introduces a 15-year-old Woebegone who, unsuccessful in children's games, decides to conquer the ocean sea from one end to the other, along with every island and peninsula, unquote. Marine rivalry with Russia was central to Gustav's appetite, and sea battles marked the beginning of the war. Woebegone throws a tantrum to his royal mother, demanding to let him go for victorious journeys. The Tsarina responds whimsically. She orders him to stop destroying her carpets with his flooding tears. Finally allowing him to take a leave, she utters, "If you don't pester a dog, he won't run away," unquote. Gustav and his mother had knowingly tumultuous relations. Their conflict reached a peak when Gustav replaced the Queen Mother Guards, a triviality likely invoked in Catherine opera. Gustav, leaving to the war, wrote to Baron Armfeld, his friend, "Nothing, quote, nothing can be more dignified and noble than my departure. My name will be famous throughout Asia and Africa," unquote. Woebegone echoes, "Swollen I am with heroism. I'll proudly pursue a war that brings my name to glory in the Southwest Northeast territory." Woebegone promises to throw to his mother's maids a majestic feast on his conquered ocean shores. Leaving to the front, Gustav published an invitation to the ladies of his court to a ball in Peterhof, adding that he will overturn the statues of Peter the Great and replaces this statue with his own, unquote. In the second act, Woebegone tries the weaponry of Russian heroes, including Peter the Great. The huge helmet engulfs Woebegone from head to belly. The giant boots completing the picture reach his belt. This bizarre, blindfolded figure with only a head, 2 legs, and no body commands to hand him the heavy golden mace of Tsar Peter, but of course he can't move it. In her tale, the imperial author lavishes the detail of Woebegone selecting a horse. Frightened by black-maned Argamak, which was considered to be actually Peter and Catherine's horse, falling from Circassian and finding the third mare too stubborn, Woebegone finally mounts an old, tired nag. The second meeting between Catherine and Gustav was delayed because Gustav had fallen from a horse and broken his arm, which, quote, some in Europe suspected a political maneuver, unquote. The empress quipped in a letter to Potemkin, Alexander of Macedonia would probably make sure not to plummet himself from the horse in view of his troops. That actually became a walking joke in Russian court. So when when somebody joked about Lev Naryshkin, there is a record that he should have chosen the ass, not a horse, okay, like Gustav. In the third act, the champion finds a target to attack. Announcing that he's hungry, Woebegone storms a peasant hut, but its one-armed old owner, grabbing a spike, crushes the champion and sets a dog after him. Banished Woebegone is an unmistakable depiction of a war-starved Gustav, who had led an army to the border fortress Nishlot, famous for this very episode. There, like Woebegone, Gustav was defeated by also a real historical figure, one-armed commander, Peter Kuzmin, who defended the fortress with a disproportionately small army. From the beginning of the war, Gustav faced multiple mutinies. In early August 1788, 100 conspirators signed the Angela Peace Declaration appealing to Catherine. Likewise, Woebegone's unwillingly conscripted associates tried to bring the hero home. In Act 1, they mourned the prospect of accompanying him. In Act 2, they divert Woebegone from the main road to a narrow path, keeping him close to the kingdom. In Act 3, they put the stubborn master asleep. And in the fourth act, as a final measure, the stage is pseudo-attack. Blowing horns, creating horrid noises and commotion, they convince the champion that huntsmen, along with bone-eaters, forest goblins, numberless witches and wizards riding their aspens, are all closing on Woebegone. Scared, he climbs the tree and nests there like a bird. His companion persuades the hero to return to his mommy. The fifth act, as in every other comic opera by the Empress, is the wedding, in this case, between a dwarfish pompous prince and his large, garrulous, jingling bride, Grimila, a Russian name Grimila. In English, I call her Rattle. Okay, and I want to show the characters here, so you can kind of track it. Yes. Gustav and other candidates. It's a very short section. I will just shorten it more. Gustav was not the only candidate for the this dwarfish prince, okay? Of course, people suspect that she was also impersonating Paul, her son Paul. Like the operatic Tsarina, Catherine protected and controlled her impulsive son and lover of games, including Svaika, which is a part of the libretto, okay? Her burlesque champion was elastic enough to identify it with a panoply of self-inflated characters. Derzhavin, the poet Derzhavin, in his poem Nashyastye, depicts Catherine, imaginary conversant, as a god, strong, dashing, mean, and kind, who brings Catherine laurels of victories from Istanbul and Taurida, ready to engage with Stockholm. Well, anybody who knows Russian history knows that this is Prince Potemkin. But in the poem, Derzhavin writes, when hit by 50, the fortune changed its merry course. The hero becomes a Woebegone, or Gory Bogatyr himself, as it was indeed Potemkin who bequeathed Taurida Catherine, who battled Ottomans at the time that Derzhavin wrote the verses. Libretto. As in the case of her other operas, the creation of Woebegone was a collaborative process. Kropotkin copy-edited Catherine's text and penned all the lyrics. She corrected and commented on his rewrites. Completed by December 9, very quickly, the libretto with the approbation of Mamonov was to be sent to composer Martin Soler. As production began, the imperial librettist kept attended rehearsals, commented on acting. She was recorded to say, it is burlesque. Burlesque needs to be played lively and jauntily, unquote. In January 1788, Woebegone champion was premiered at Catherine Hermitage Theatre. In the well-balanced structure of the opera, the first and fifth acts unfolding in the court of Tsarina Lakhmeta, mother. The second and the fourth act depict Woebegone male squad only. The third act, containing most of actions, first shows the champion with his companions attacking and being defeated by an old soldier. In the second half of the act, the chorus of Lakhmeta maidens is doubled by cortege of the bride, arriving with her bombastic singing and dancing entourage. Music. In 1788, lo spagnolo Martino Soler from Valencia, a master of Italian buffo whose opera rivaled those of Mozart in Vienna, arrived in St. Petersburg at the imperial invitation. He continued the line of Italian composers serving Russian crown. Vincenzo Manfredini, Francesco Araya, Baldassare Galuppi, Tommaso Traetta, Giovanni Paisiello, Carlo Cannobio, Domenico Cimarosa, and Giuseppe Sarti, to name a few. Disembarked in Russia, Martino Soler engaged in creating music for Catherine Woebegone. The score consists of 29 numbers, including the overture, 8 choruses, speaking about opera seria by the time, 7 ensembles and 14 airs. He followed the symmetrical structure of Catherine's libretto. The only orchestral number is a short overture. Two mixed choruses frame the opera. The first and the fifth acts favor choral numbers. So court is with choruses. Act 1, along with 3 solos, has 4 choruses, 3 designed for female choirs. Act 5 includes a solo duet and 3 choruses, 2 for women. The internal second and fourth act consists of ensembles, male duets, trio, and 1 quartet. The high point of the opera, the third act, featuring a sequence of 9 solos, it's practically a recital, vocal recital, ending with chorus. The existing vocal score of the opera was prepared by Russia's folklorist Ivan Prach. Of course, Lvov and Prach were known for creating a collection of Russian folk songs, one of the earliest anthologies of native musical folklore, on which all composers of 19th century draw endlessly. The Bravura Allegra Asaya overture in Woebegone draws on 3 folk songs that appeared in Lvov Prach collection. And here is paradox. All the scholars believe the tunes borrowed from Lvov Prach. The collection was released a year later, as it happened, for example, with Spevey, where elsewhere argued that the process could be absolutely reversed. Neither libretto nor score can clarify issue of language. What type of translation was Martin Soler provided with few months after arriving to Russia? Did he work with transliteration, marked accents, strong and weak syllables? Many of the areas in the opera are quite fast. The articulation and accents are generally accurate. So this question still occupies me. And I decided suddenly in my course on Catherine opera, I decided, 18th century, I decided to experiment with my class. So I did syllabic transliteration of the text in the score and threw it in my 7th student course. And I want to share with you actually a very pedestrian and funny experiment with that. That's not it. Good to have wonderful. Yes. So no, next one. Yes. So this is accompanying him to the war. Пески глубокие, you can hear it. Высокий. Мы слезами заливаясь. Nobody speaks Russian there. Рукавами утираясь. Будем о тебе тужить. The tears are natural. Okay, I have to say that I tried it as the PowerPoint. Okay, on the bottom. Okay. Yeah, I wish I could learn to read. You know, it was actually, sorry to take time on this, but it was funny because I decided to do just introductory chorus, and then everybody got enthused. We pretty much produced opera that spoken parts were in English, and they improvised. If we have time, I will show to you the lead, Woebegone, okay? But they sang actually most of the operas, okay? And that took 2 weeks. So I don't know if it answered the question with language, but at least it makes it possible for Martin Soler to have translation to actually work on what he had. Considering the paucity of sources sources, anonymity of performance, and extensively spoken parts in Woebegone, it's unclear whether the production privileged vocal virtuosity or comic acting. In 18th century operas, singers could be identified not by voice types, but by the roles. Benedetto Frisi, in his Dissertazione di Biografia Musicale, identified six vocal dramatic types. According to Frisi classification, oh, okay. Woebegone is a buffo caricato, one of the most difficult. I will just stop wherever it is and suggest what questions you can ask me. So the buffo caricato was one of the hardest type. It's typically low voice. Probably comic opera buffa is coming from this. His conscripted fellows are mezzo carattere, is typically tenor, but one of them baritone. Each of the named characters perform a single solo except Lakmeta, who, bridging serious and comic female operatic role, sings two airs, only two airs. The other singing female character, clamorous buffo, Bride Rattle, performs the air at the end of the third act and joins the duet with Woebegone in the fifth. The star of the show, Woebegone sings 7 airs and joins 5 ensembles. In the first act, his baritone is situated against the female voices. His signature aria, Swollen Eye with Heroism. Do you want to hear me talking or him singing? Huh? Okay. Do we? No problem. Oh, okay, right here. That's it.
This one you want?
Yeah.
Okay, not the class, but
Not the class. I think my students did a better job, but Swollen Eye with Heroism, that's. It begins with a drum roll and fanfaring rise on the triads in E flat major. Yeah, well, maybe I should do my student too. He's as silly as the other one. Okay. 1 minute, right? In a sec, he sings in a key of E flat major. So how did Martin Soler construct this tonal? It's very interesting because E flat is one of the 3 keys that commonly accommodated trumpets and drums in 1780s, C, D, and E flat. All 3 military keys are used in the first act. The overture and the concluding chorus composed in C major. Woebegone first area is in E flat. Okay. In the second and fourth act, the 15-year baritone caricato is set against two tenors, his traveling associates. In the third act, he continues exuding braggadocio in boisterous dotted melodic iterations. The two choruses open the final act, the second chorus with the orchestral arpeggio, again in E flat major, echoing what began in the first act. So the whole structure tonally is symmetrical. The champion in C major maestoso recalls his victories, and the final chorus delivers a delightful song proverb about an obnoxious bird that, wishing to set the sea on fire, well, he couldn't ignite the ocean sea, but made much rattle at calamity. Composing coherent score, Martin Soler relies on mastery of vibratic structure, keys, melodic gesture, melodic repetition, well-balanced, memorable phrases, and dance. A pleaser of his audience, he recognized Russian affinity with dance. So I'm just going to not read, but tell you. There is a bourrée, there is minuet, pas bien, valse, and many other dances. And here in yellow, I marked what is danceable in this score. Okay. In red, I marked the solo and ensemble with, no, actually only aria with Woebegone. Okay. A lot. Okay. And here, on the right column, you see the symmetrical structure of the keys. I'm going to leave it on that. Okay. If I have half a minute, I can tell you about gender in this opera. Will you let me do that? Okay. Gender twist. The cast in the opera consists of 5 males and 2 females. Most of the second act, half of the third, and the entire fourth act feature only men. Women mainly represented by chorus of nannies appeasing the champion. With 11 airs and 7 ensembles devised for men, women perform only 3 solos, 1 mixed duet, and a half dozen choruses. Perhaps the profusion of male parts affords the creator the opportunity of continuous satirical expose. Lampooning is especially biting in a scenes populated by men only. Did Catherine, beyond her champion, satirize collective male imagery? Why does Tarin Lakmeta, who controls the situation singly in first and a third act, pretty much invisible throughout the rest? Woebegone was conceived during tumultuous times in France. Its premiere preceded by the storm of the Bastille by a couple of months. Marie Antoinette guillotined 4 years later. Martha Feldman explores the image of mother in 18th century opera seria, charting the trajectory from favorable portrayal of mothers in the early 1700s to their dismissal in Pietro Metastasio, and their late century demonization tied to the public representation of Marie Antoinette. The litany of pornographic depiction of France's queen in 1780s did not differ much from sexualized cartoons of Catherine II by the end of the early 90s. It's interesting, perhaps aware of the events unfolding in France, Catherine diminished visibility and sonority of women while updating the power of her Tsarina mother. After her Woebegone, neither of her 2 operas featured the mother at all. Now, 3 preceding operas were always mother, and out of 4 comic operas about the teenager prince, 2 of them raised by widow mother. But no mother after Woebegone. The last one-act comic opera portrays a Fidul with 15 children, portrays the widow father and 15 children in the early reign of Alec, her only historical pageantry. The title hero raises, marries, and bequeaths the crown to his nephew, Crown Prince Igor. The only named female character there is his bride. That's it.
Thank you for that paper. We have, and in order to keep things on time, I think we have just time for 1 question. Otherwise, we'll need some transition time to get our next panel together. Is there a question? Yes.
I just want to thank you. This really colorful, very much really colorful. So interesting. And one, just a point, given us so much. I just can't help being amused by the fact that very same monarchs who insisted on not being named or referred to in Alpha would overtake another monarch and
Yes.
I think that is actually just wonderful.
Yes. From Frederick the Great to Gustav and to Catherine and to other monarchs in the late 18th century loved theater. I actually argue that theater was nothing but the political instrument of power for them. And this is in my book. So not in her preceding operas, not only she names the kings, she also makes the instructage, opera instruction for her grandsons openly, absolutely, for her courtiers in how to behave, how to accompany, and so forth, in allegorical and other versions. So Catherine never did anything without other underlying level 2, 3, 5. So thank you.
That will conclude ours.
Thank you.